See, in your basic geometry course, when you are doing in your school geometry course, one of the things, of course, that was probably the earliest in your elementary school, you normally measure distances and then construct triangle with the distances. I mean, distance was the first thing that you come across. And after some time in your schooling, you get into a new concept called angle. If not the first, first couple of classes that you do, there probably you would discuss all about distances. Then you get into angle a bit later. So question is, does something similar to that one can discuss on, surfaces? Does it make any sense discussing, angle? That's the first thing. We have to make a sense of it. Then we see whether we can measure that. How do we measure all that? So, of course, the differentiable structure is very important. Differentiable structure is basically, as I was always telling, some linear approximation. So, this linearity is the one that helps you. So, what is the meaning of angle? Generally, angle is measured by, two lines, two straight lines, and then look at angle between. There is a way of measuring angles. If you have a point here, then you can cut an arc and get the arc length. This is what the general angle measure. Whatever it is, you know how to do it. But the problem with the surface is, on a surface, you don't have straight lines. On a sphere you look at, you don't have straight lines. Then how are you going to take arc or take anything and that kind of, then it doesn't make sense. So therefore, to start with, we have to make sense of what is meant by angle. Okay, once you know what is angle, then you can ask about properties of what happened to the angle measuring, etc., etc. So this is where calculus helps you, because if you look at any surface, to make sense of angle, what we have is only arcs. We don't have straight lines. Since we don't have straight lines, we cannot measure angle sitting on the surface. This is the problem with angle. So, but then there is a way out. The way out is, as I said, calculus. We approximate this by a linear object, namely tangent vector. Look at the tangent. Tangent is a linear approximation. An approximation by a linear object, namely a line, to the given curve. Very strong approximation. This is similarly you can do here. So you have two tangent vectors in R3 or even in Rn. If you have two vectors, of course, if they are in the same direction, then angle is 0. There is no issue of it. If they are not in the same direction, there is a beautiful geometric fact that given any two, in fact linear algebra also you must be doing this, that there is a unique plane containing these two. If the two vectors are different, not in the same direction, not parallel, I mean in this way and this way again it's parallel, but if they are not parallel, then they are linearly independent. Once they are linearly independent, they generate a unique plane. And on that plane, you can, in the plane, now you have two lines lying in a plane and passing through this point, you can measure angle. This is the beautiful way we use calculus. Calculus means linear approximation to the given object and measure angle. Now, in a surface, what do we do? There is no difficulty. Surface, exactly this is what you can do. Given any two tangent vectors, any curve, you can make the tangent vectors and then you are in the tangent plane, you can measure them. Everything is resolved once you understand, and that's why the the calculus, namely linear approximation. The whole idea of calculus is linear approximation. That reduces everything down to linear objects. Then anything that you do with the plane and linear objects, you can do that. So we can measure. I mean, of course, if you have, you can even write if gamma 1 and gamma 2. Say, let us say gamma 1, gamma 2, two curves. Domain, anyway, you can translate the domain and always assume that they have the same domain and pass to the surface. Then you have gamma 1 dot and such that, okay, some point you fix, then you can say gamma 1 T naught. Even this you can assume gamma 2 T naught, same point goes to the work or to this, but these things are not important. You can also assume that they are different, okay. So the tangent vectors you get, gamma 1 dot at T naught is the tangent to the curve gamma at the point P, and gamma 2 dot T naught, this is the tangent to gamma 2 at the point P. And to get the angle between them, there is another method, the standard one. Take the dot product. The dot product is nothing but norm of gamma 1 dot T naught into norm of gamma 2 dot T naught into cosine of angle between gamma 1 dot and gamma 2 dot at T naught. And remember, whether measured from gamma 1 to gamma 2 or gamma 2 to gamma 2 makes no difference because cosine is an even function. So it's irrelevant which way you write, okay. So that takes care of it. And normally convention is that it's always measured the smaller angle. Because if you take two points and there are two angles between them, one here, one here. But the convention is always to measure a smaller one, which is between less than or equal to 2 pi. So that's what is done. So this is, and then you want to know what is the angle between them. This is the one. So theta, the angle between them, theta is equal to gamma 1 dot at T naught dot gamma 2 dot at T naught divided by norm of dot at T naught into norm of gamma 2 dot at T naught. You have this and then take cosine inverse. So that gives you actually the measure. So this is the angle between, considered as the angle between the two curves gamma 1 and gamma 2. Okay. Now, of course, there are, of course, given examples you can keep constructing, but I want to discuss something called angle preserving maps. Maps that angle preserving. That means preserving map. Suppose from surface S1 to S2 you have a map, nice map, okay. You can even say diffeomorphism that preserves angle also, which is not all diffeomorphisms do that. S1 to S2 angle preserving maps are, there is a name, I will come to that is angle preserving if for every two, for same setup, for every gamma 1, gamma 2 such that this gamma 1, gamma 2 to S1 such that gamma 1 T naught is equal to gamma 2 T naught. At the point the gamma 1 T naught, it crosses, they pass through the point, you want to call this equal to P at S, so it passes through P, both of them, okay. The angle between angle between between gamma 1 and gamma 2 is the same as the angle between F composite gamma 1 and F composite gamma 2. Standard examples are, simple examples are first on the plane as a surface translations. Translations are the most standard ones. And next one is the rotations of plane and rotations of the plane R2. So they preserve. Slowly we will realize, we'll come to that. Isometries preserve angles, but that needs some work. We'll come to that later. But these are the ones. But there is a strange and most important class of what is that angle preserving maps are something that you all must have been familiar with, analytic functions. Of course, R should be treated as complex plane. Then analytic functions are a beautiful class of maps that preserve angle. And so it's a beautiful thing, because if you have analytic function, I would say, well, non-constant I can say, it's not enough non-constant, wherever the derivative of analytic function does not vanish. If the analytic function's derivative vanishes, there could be a problem. At that place, probably it may be rotating 2-3 times, the angle may not be preserved. Angle may be, contracted. So that can happen. So wherever, so for instance, let us take F from C to C, and analytic need not be any complex numbers also, any complex domain also would do, analytic, and such that F prime at the point Z0 is not equal to 0. At some point where this is non-zero. But this is something, this class you should always know, that they are a large class of functions that you have. They all preserve angles, in the sense that we have said, because none of them is linear or anything. So you have to interpret it using curves. So you take two curves. So you just take gamma 1 and gamma 2 two curves, such that gamma 1 T0 equal to gamma 2 T0 is this point Z0. Let us take. Okay. Now what is the angle between them? Angle between them is angle between, well, let me use A and G. Angle between gamma 1 and gamma 2 at the point T0. That is the angle between gamma 1 dot and gamma 2 dot. That's equal to the angle between gamma 1 dot at T0, gamma 2 dot at T0. These are complex numbers. So that's a beauty, that simple thing that will help you. That is equal to, you just take the argument of gamma 1 dot at T0 minus argument of gamma 2 dot at T0. Okay, this can also be, this is the same as, assuming this is not equal to 0, one of them will be non-zero, both are 0, then there is nothing to prove. So it's non-zero, you take like that, then this can be written as argument of gamma 1 dot at T0 divided by gamma 2 dot at T0. This small change helps you to do everything. Now let us look at F composite. So what is the argument of F composite gamma 1 dot gamma 1 and angle between them? F composite gamma 1 and F composite gamma 2. That's what we are asking. That's the same as angle between F composite gamma 1 dot comma F composite gamma 2 dot, of course at the point T naught. So you have to, there's a space problem. So now apply chain rule. So this is F prime angle between F prime at Z naught gamma at T naught. This is at T naught. So you substitute here F prime at gamma T naught is Z naught. Gamma dot T naught, okay, divided by the same formula. This is, if you want to write, you write gamma 1 tilde, gamma 2 tilde. So same formula I am applying, argument of, and F prime at Z naught into gamma 2 dot at T naught. And this is the place where we use the fact that F prime at Z naught is non-zero. That's it. Argument is the same. It's a beautiful result that all complex analytic functions preserve angles. So it's a large class of angle preserving maps. And yes, our geometry, these are also all complex analytic functions are therefore the name used. Let me now give you the name used. Conformal maps. At least between complex planes, complex domains, we have a large class of angle preserving maps or conformal maps. Okay, so now let's come down to computation of angles, and then we will go to maps. What will happen to maps when between surfaces. So let us take a surface patch. So let sigma from U to S be a surface patch. Of course, any curve or curves that can be, So let me draw a picture. This is your surface, and let's start with a point here, U0, V0, and the image is P. So we are trying to understand the angle between curves there. So what you do, you take two curves here. This is the point U0, V0, and you will have images here. So you will take the tangents here and here, and then measure the angle between the tangents. That's what we do. So everything, of course, what is important is that these two curves that we have taken, maybe I will call this gamma 1, this is gamma 2, doesn't matter. Then you can, every curve you can pass through, get through a curves here. So let us do that. Let gamma 1 is just a curve, but always you can take as images of curve, is equal to gamma 1t is equal to sigma some curve here u1t, v1t, that's one curve in the plane, and gamma 2t is equal to sigma u2t, v2t. And if you want, you can properly adjust the domain so that you can define the curves in the same domain. It's enough you define in a small interval so that both gamma 1 and gamma 2 are defined here, and some point t naught, this is by translating things you can do, and t naught goes to this point under both gamma 1 and gamma 2. Be curves on S such that same thing you can take gamma 1 t naught is equal to gamma 2 t naught is actually equal to P. that point. Of course, this is the point u t naught v t naught is u naught v naught. These are always v t naught, u t naught equal to u naught, v t naught equal to v naught. So that t naught goes to this point, sigma of that goes to this point by both the maps. So that is, you can always assume that even if it is two intervals, you can just translate it and make it from the same domain. And whatever that point that you want, you can bring here and take the intersection of the two after translation. Then take that as your u0, u1, v1, u2, v2. I'm sorry, this is, I have to be careful. ui t naught equal to u0, vi t naught equal to both of them. These go to u0, v0. Okay. u1 t naught, u2 t naught, that is u0, v0. I mean u1 t naught, v1 t naught is u0, v0. So is u2 t naught, v2 t naught. I is equal to 1 and 2. Okay. So this is not a very serious issue. Okay. So now we have to find out the angle between them. Angle between them is nothing but the angle between the derivatives. So let us compute it. Gamma 1 dot t naught. What is gamma 1 dot t naught? You already have this. Use chain rule. So sigma u at this point, sigma u at this point is u0, v0 into you differentiate with respect to u1. So u1 dot at t naught plus sigma v at this is differentiating with respect to both, yeah. Sigma v at again u0, v0, that means you put t equal to t naught. So that is u0, v0 and v1 dot t naught. So that is the gamma 1 dot. So this is a linear combination of sigma u and sigma v at this point. So it's a linear combination of these base vectors of the tangent space. So you get a tangent vector. These are scalars. Similarly, gamma 2, the same formula. If I want, I can just avoid rewriting I. I is equal to 1, 2. So gamma 1 dot, gamma 2 dot, both we have got. And now what we require is the angle between them. So you have two vectors in R2, R3. These two vectors are in R3. What is the angle between them? You take the dot product. Okay. So dot product is the cosine of, norm of first vector into norm of second vector into cosine of the angle between them. So cosine of angle between them, cosine theta is equal to this, we have already seen, gamma 1 dot at t naught dot gamma 2 dot at t naught divided by norm of gamma 1 dot at t naught into norm of dot at t naught. Okay. So we can compute this. What will be this? This is equal to, so we already have, I have written only one of them, I mean single expression for gamma 1 dot and gamma 2 dot. So you have to take the, you have to assume this is u1 v1 then u2 v2 and take this dot product. So when you take dot product, what will you get? Put I is equal to 1 here, sigma u0 v0 u1 dot, sigma v u0 v0 v1 dot, then next one is sigma u u0 v0 u2 dot plus sigma v u0 v0 v2 dot. So their dot product, if you take, there are 4 terms with I is equal to 1, 2 terms and I is equal to 1, then you take the dot product with the other. So first this one let me take, so it will be sigma u dot sigma u, so that is norm of sigma u square. So maybe I will write it sigma u, I will avoid writing all these expressions in the evaluation, which is understood that everything going to be evaluated at T naught, and consequently the points here are going to be u naught, v naught. So it is easy for us to understand. So sigma u u1 dot plus sigma v v1 dot. So I'm not writing the evaluation, the same expression, except that I don't write the evaluation, which is understood what is to be done, just to simplify the expressions. The next one will be sigma u u2 dot plus sigma v v2 dot. It's slight abuse of notation because these are scalars written after the vector, but you can imagine that's for chain rule convenience I am writing like this, but this is actually, as the standard way of writing, is u1 dot sigma u plus v1 dot sigma v. This is u2 dot sigma u, because u2 dot is scalar, this is a vector. All evaluated. I have already written one expression and I am just rewriting it without the evaluating points. Okay, so this is easy for understanding. So let us take the dot product. So dot product, these are scalars, so u1 dot u2 dot comes out, sigma u dot sigma u, that is norm of sigma u, norm of sigma u square, that is actually E, the expressions that you see in the first fundamental form, E u1 dot u2 dot. So this, now it's real valued because you have taken the dot product, plus now sigma u dot sigma v is there, and then sigma v dot sigma u. So both are sigma u dot sigma v. So that is F. So let us write two of them. This is, it is not, both are not same. So if you take sigma u dot sigma v, then this is u1 dot v2 dot. u1 dot v2 dot. And the other one is the other way. So this is plus. Next one is sigma v dot sigma u, that's the same as sigma u dot sigma v, so F itself. So this is u2 dot into v1 dot, plus the last one is these two, so that is g v1 dot v2 dot. So this is the, yeah, right now I have written only the numerator, that is true, that's true. So divided by, so I will write them because this is, once you know this is easier. Norm of gamma 1 dot into norm of gamma 2 dot, again evaluated at that point. So let me write that. What is that going to be, gamma 1 dot? That's easy because put I is equal to, both places you write the same expression. That means wherever 1 is there, you put, I is equal to j. So this will be, so the first one will be, that is norm of square. So there will be a square root, put both I is equal to 1, let us free. So it is u1 dot square plus here, when you put both are 1, so there is no 2 here. So this will be 2f u1 dot v1 dot plus, this is both 1, so it will be g v1 dot square. So that is about gamma 1 dot, gamma 2 dot exactly the other one. So that will be E u2 dot square plus 2f u2 dot v2 dot plus g v2 dot square. Remember this ui and vi dots are evaluated at t naught and e, f, g are evaluated at u naught, v naught. Okay, so that is the understanding which I have written in the first one, and fixing that these expressions I have rewritten. So this is the angle between them. Okay, so this computation is has to be done. Then only you can really see the So advantage is that now the expression comes from the coefficients of the first fundamental form. So that's very crucial. Okay, so this is the general computation of that. I just want to look at one particular map. This is very interesting map. Namely, so let me write this example. I'm not going to compute the whole thing, but let me see how far we can do. Sphere. So let us take two spheres. Your S1, Si is, okay, S1 is at some point sphere of radius R1. So I will write S point is A, the center, and the radius is R1. What is that? The set of all x in R3 such that norm of x minus A, the vectors, is equal to R1. Radius, sphere of radius R1, you can take S2 is equal to this. I can, okay, so that is the problem. So, okay, so S2 is, let's change the center, B, R2. So, this is x in R2 such that norm of x minus B is equal to R2. The set of all points, set of all points at a distance R2 from the center B. So, these are the two spheres, any two spheres in R3. This is a very natural map where we have magnification and translation. That is what happens. So, let me define the map F from, I wanted to give a name for it. I don't remember whether we have said what is a conformal map, right? Yeah. So let me now, I don't know, formally I think I have, I'm also not able to remember, but let's see. F from S1 to S2 is defined by, what do you do? Be defined as, I'll tell you the way I'm looking at. First change the center. So I want the new center to be Fx. So it should be B plus any point you take, first you bring it down to origin and then move it to, this is a general philosophy. You have two spheres. I want a map from here. First I will bring it to the origin. To bring it to the origin, what is required is x minus A. Then the center will be shifted to the origin. But then I want the radius to be changed. So the existing radius is R1. So divide by R1. So this brings the whole thing into a unit sphere. But what you want is a sphere of radius R2. So multiply by R2. So now this is a sphere of radius R2 around origin. Now what you do is you translate it back to B. So now this is going to be, you can easily check that if this is an element here, then what will happen to, you can check that this one, suppose you call this Y. So if you take, then Y is going to be here. Y, let us look at Y minus B. Y minus B, if you translate, this is going to be norm of Y minus B. What is norm of Y minus B? Norm of this. And what is norm of this? R2 by R1, both are positive, into norm of x minus A. X is here. So norm of x minus A is R1. So R1 and R1 gets cancelled. So you have only left with R2. Therefore, norm of Y minus B is going to be R2. So this is going to be on that. And you can easily, very easy to check that this is a bijective map. So it's a diffeomorphism. F is a diffeomorphism. And the inverse is exactly same way. Interchange R1, R2 and A and B. That is the roles. So it will be A plus R1 Y minus B by R2. Exactly interchanging R1 and R2 and A and B. So you get. So F is a diffeomorphism. Its smoothness is trivial. It's linear almost, right? It's a linear and translation. That's what I meant by linear. F is a diffeomorphism. Now I want to prove that this is going to be a conformal map. Okay. Yeah. So for that, let's start with standard parameterization. So sigma uv, you have to be careful because now your sphere is of radius a. So for nicety, let me write a is equal to a1, a2, a3, and b is equal to b1, b2, b3. So let us just write down that. So it will be, center has to be shifted. So we will start with a1 plus. In the ultimate result, this doesn't play much role because once you differentiate, all those things will disappear. It makes no difference whether you work at an origin or somewhere. I am just writing general, but it makes no difference. A1 plus, this is the radius here is R1. So you need an R1 also. R1 cos u cos v. This is the general parameterization of this any sphere of radius R1 R with center A. Next is A2 plus, what do you get? R1 cos u sin v. And finally, the third coordinate is A3 plus sin u, R1 sin u. You can easily check this works because we translated from the origin and we multiplied by R1 so that it becomes, the radius gets expanded. Then we translated by A1, A2, A3. This is exactly what you see. Standard sphere, unit sphere, cos u, cos v, sin v, sin u. So you multiply this by throughout by R. So the radius becomes R1. I mean here it is R1. And then the center is shifted to A1, A2, A3. So that is the standard. It is a very standard expression. Okay, so we will come to that. Okay, so now let's write down the what will happen to we'll take a F composite that so that we get here. So sigma tilde uv is equal to F composite sigma uv. Okay, so let's the same. I'll take F composite sigma itself and see what happens to the and compute the what is that angle. So for that, F composite sigma uv. So what will be F composite sigma uv? Let us check here. First you subtract this A1 from there. So you can see that is the first thing. First you subtract. So A1, A2, A3 will disappear. And afterwards you divide by R1. So R1, R2, R3 also goes. But then you multiply by R2. So you will have R2 cos u cos v, R2 cos u sin v, and R2 sin v. Then you add B. So you will have B1 plus R2. So adding B means add first coordinate B1, second coordinate B2, third coordinate B3. Cos u cos v, B2 plus R2 cos u sin v, and finally B3 plus R2 sin u. So this is what you get. So everything is fine. Now let's look at the angle between gamma at the let us fix. Let's take some point. Let's take P be a point on S1 and Q is equal to FP. That's all right. So to take the angle. So let us take gamma 1, gamma 2 from. Let's assume from the same domain to S1 two curves such that T naught is mapped to that. Be such that gamma 1t, gamma it, as we have done earlier, is equal to sigma okay, UIT VIT and I is equal to 1, 2 and such that gamma I T naught is equal to P. Both of them goes to P. So at P, so you have first sphere, so you have two curves here and F is the map. You have, I'm sorry, this is a sphere, so this is also sphere. So you have a sphere. The map is somewhat, okay, I should be careful because the radius might change. This may be smaller. The center here is A and center here is B. But the position won't change much is the beauty of the whole thing. Okay, so that is your F. So it's all right. So let's compute first, angle between these two angles. So gamma 1, this is sigma, so gamma 1 dot, and by the way, gamma I tilde is equal to F composite gamma I. So this is gamma 1 T, this is gamma 2, and this is gamma 1 tilde, this is gamma 2 tilde. That's the image of F. So we will compute these two. So what is the angle here? So let me call this theta between the two tangent vectors. So cos theta, and this place you call it theta tilde. Just distinguish them. So cos theta is going to be, we have already made computation, E. Before going further, let's look at this, the corresponding EF. So if you look at here, if you remember the computations, then this will be, here E is going to be R1 squared, F is of course 0, and G is R1 square cos square U. And this E tilde, if you make the computation here, it's very easy. E tilde is going to be R2 square, F tilde is going to be 0 again, and G tilde, because this R2, once you differentiate, these R1, R2 will remain there. Then when you take the norm square, automatically R1 square and R2 square will get in. Nothing else changes. R2 square cos square U. Okay. So there is a difference, the G tilde, yeah. There is a difference between the two. So now let us compute E U dot square, E U dot square, U1 dot square, E U1 dot U2 dot. So plus, so E is equal to R square, R1 square, U1 dot U2 dot plus 2F, that is 0, so you don't have to worry. Then G, so that is R1 square cos square U V1 dot V2 dot divided by, that is this expression. If you do, that's what you get. I'm sorry, so that I have to be careful. U1 dot U2 dot, this is R square cos square U1 dot this is U1 dot V2 dot plus U2 dot V1 dot. Oh no, that's about F term. I'm sorry, that's not there. It's okay. So this is V1 dot V2 dot. Yes, sorry. So divided by square root of first one. The first one is R1 square. R1 square. This is, yeah, R1 square. This is U1 dot square plus F is not there, so you will have R1 square cos square U1 dot V1 dot square. cos square u. This is just cos square u. This is u1, that's right. Evaluation is to be done. Then this is r1 square, again u2 dot square plus again r1 square cos square u2 v2 dot square. So now you can easily see that this r1 can be taken out, this r1 also can be taken out. So there will be an r1 square outside, and then cancel with that. All these disappears, all these r1s etc. will disappear. And that's it. So this is the, now cos theta tilde, you do that, instead of r1 you will have r2 square here, nothing else changes, and that comes out and it goes, therefore you are going to get same expression. So it is u1 dot u2 dot plus cos square v1 dot v2 dot divided by these two expressions are same. So therefore this map F, which involves an expansion, change of radius from r1 to r2, it depends on whether r1 is smaller, r2 is smaller, either expanding or contracting, and a translation. Translation obviously doesn't change anything, it's even an isometry, so it just goes there. So therefore this is a conformal map, but this is not an isometry, because you can easily see that the distance, even if you take a equator and look at its the equator will be of pi r1 squared length, and if you go there, the equator, it's mapped to the equator, and that's our pi r2 square. Obviously they are not same. So it's not an isometry, but it is a conformal map. Okay, it's one of the simplest conformal maps. Any rotation you do, we'll come to that also. So if you maybe a little later on, you will see that all isometries are going to be conformal. If you have two isometries, here itself you can see, if you are taking an isometry, then your E, F, G are same as E tilde, F tilde, G tilde, and therefore this expression for both places you get the same thing, because E equal to E tilde, F equal to F tilde, G equal to G tilde, others are common to both. So therefore isometries are going to be conformal, and here is a map which is not an isometry, but this is conformal. Okay, so that's a simple example and expected kind of an example.